Catherine the Great was born on April 21st in 1729 in Stettin, Prussia, as Sophia Augusta Frederica, as the daughter of Prince Christian August of Anhalt-Zerbst and Princess Johanna Elisabeth of Holstein-Gottorp. As it was common for that time, her parents were hoping for a son, so their excitement was very limited. Catherine was not very close with her parents, and she was mostly raised by her governess, Babette. Nevertheless, Catherine received a proper education. She studied religion, history, French, German, and music. Catherine was described as very intelligent and an inquisitive student. When she turned 15 years old, Catherine and her mother were invited to Russia by Empress Elizabeth I to meet the heir to the throne, Grand Duke Peter. Peter was said to be an immature and disagreeable young man who preferred to play with tin soldiers instead of paying attention to his future bride. At first, the marriage plans were put on hold, as Catherine was struggling to let go of her Lutheran faith. After all, she decided to convert to the Russian Orthodox faith, and soon after she and the Grand Duke were married in 1745. As it was to be expected, the marriage turned out to be an unhappy one. In the beginning, Catherine tried to please Peter by participating in his childish games, but soon she was repelled by his demeanor. Peter became unfaithful to Catherine and took Lady Elizaveta Romanovna Vorontsova as his mistress, who enjoyed humiliating Catherine. One of her weak points was the childlessness in their marriage. It was common for that time to solely blame women for the failure to conceive a child, so the pressure on Catherine was immense, since it was her main duty to produce an heir. As the marriage of Catherine and Peter was not very fulfilling and might not even have been carried out, it is said that Empress Elizabeth suggested to Catherine to take a lover. After 9 years of marriage in 1754, the pair welcomed their firstborn son, Peter, to the world, followed by their daughter in 1757. Whether Peter was their biological father is quite questionable. Rumor has it that Catherine's lover at that time, Sergei Saltykov, fathered her children. Captured in an unhappy marriage, Catherine pursued not only an active love life outside of her marriage, she also had great interest in politics and read widely, for most French literature such as Diderot and Voltaire. Ambitious and intelligent as she was, Catherine looked forward to ruling Russia one day. Unlike her husband, she dedicated her time to learning Russian and demonstrating her commitment to the Russian Orthodox faith. This loyalty would earn her the place on the throne and win the hearts of the Russian people. When Empress Elizabeth died in 1761, Peter was proclaimed Peter III, and Catherine became Empress. Soon after gaining the throne, Peter had made many enemies within the government, military, and the church. Immediately, plans were conspired to overthrow Peter III and then place a 7-year-old son on the throne and name Catherine as regent until the boy would be old enough to rule on his own. But Catherine was more ambitious than playing a background figure. On June 28, 1762, with the aid of her lover Gregory Orloff, they rallied the troops of St. Petersburg to her support and declared herself Catherine II, sole ruler of Russia. Catherine had Peter arrested and required him to abdicate. However, shortly after his arrest, Peter was killed in a brawl with his captors. Whether this murder was planned or accidental remains a mystery. Catherine had ambitious plans regarding both domestic and foreign affairs. Nonetheless, in the first year of her reign, her attention was directed towards securing her position as an empress. She was aware that many influential people considered her a usurper who seized the throne unrightfully. They viewed her son, Paul, as the rightful ruler. Catherine's response to her opponents was to take every opportunity to win favor among the nobility and the military. When it came to domestic affairs, Catherine understood that Russia was in need of an extended period of peace for her to improve the Russian Empire. By 1764, Catherine was established enough to begin her work on reforms and enhancing the social and economic condition in Russia. Catherine's rule was greatly influenced by the ideas of the Enlightenment. Her first major reform was aimed at the Russian legal system. It was based on an old and inefficient code of laws dating from 1649. Catherine's proposal, the Instruction, was widely distributed in Europe and caused a sensation because it called for a legal system far ahead of its times. It proposed a system providing equal protection under the law for all persons. It also emphasized prevention of criminal acts rather than harsh punishments. Besides, Catherine was eager to abandon the serfdom, which was very common in Russia and affected most Russians in their agriculture. Therefore, in June 1767, the Empress created the Legislative Commission to revise the old laws in accordance with the so-called the Instruction. Catherine had high hopes for the commission, but since little progress was made and resistance was too great, Catherine suspended the meetings at the end of 1768. Besides the domestic affairs, foreign matters demanded Catherine's attention. After riots broke out against the Russian influence in Poland, she sent troops to aid Polish King Stanisław, her former lover. Soon after, Turkey and Austria joined in by supporting the revolution in Poland. Following lengthy negotiations, Catherine concluded a peace treaty with Turkey. This gave Russia its first foothold on the Black Sea coast. Russia's merchant ships were allowed to sail the Black Sea, and through the Dardanelles, a key waterway in Europe. Alongside these peace talks, Catherine also had to handle a revolt led by the Cossack Yemelyan Pugachev. The rebel leader claimed that Peter III's death was staged and that he himself was Peter III. Soon, tens of thousands were following him, and the uprising came closer and closer to Moscow. Pugachev's defeat required several grand fights by the imperial forces. Pugachev was captured in late 1774 and executed in 1775. Much of Catherine's fame is based on her accomplishments following the years of the Pugachev uprising. She dedicated herself to structuring the state and reorganizing its many institutions. For most, she desired to optimize the government's functionality. Catherine was also concerned with expanding the country's educational system. In 1786, she developed a plan to create a large-scale educational system. Even though she was unable to carry out the entire plan during her lifetime, she did establish many elementary and secondary schools and laid the foundation stone for the future education system. Arts and science flourished during Catherine's reign as well. She enjoyed arts herself and thought science to be important for the country's development. Besides that, she saw them as a tool to earn Russia the reputation of a cultivated civilization. Under her supervision, St. Petersburg was turned into one of the world's most dazzling capitals. Theater, music, and painting flourished with her encouragement. As Catherine grew older, she became greatly concerned by the question of her succession. Her son and heir Paul was becoming mentally unstable, and she was doubting his ability to rule. Their relationship became so troubled that Catherine was even considering naming Paul's older son, Alexander, as her successor. However, before she was able to alter her will, Catherine II died of a stroke on November 6, 1796.